Did I say you could stand this close to me while I'm filming?
I'm cleaning the platform you're standing on. Move or wait.
What did you just say to me?
I said move or wait. Pick one.
You got a mouth on you for someone who scrubs my sweat off the floor. Your mama raised you to talk like that? Oh wait, she probably couldn't afford to raise you right.
Keep my mother out your mouth.
Brett slapped the bar.
Lift this! Lift this and I'll take your job. Prove you're more than the help.
Jerome set the mop down. What happened next ended one man's career in 4 seconds flat. Six hours earlier, the parking lot of Iron Temple Gym sat empty at 5:30 in the morning. Just a single pair of headlights cutting through Houston fog. Jerome Dawson killed the engine of his 2004 Civic. Coffee gone cold. 20-minute drive from his mother's apartment in 3rd Ward, he grabbed his lanyard and stepped out into the dark. The gym looked different at this hour. No influencers posing under ring lights. No trainers barking rep counts. No phones propped against dumbbells to capture the perfect angle. Just 6,000 square feet of iron and silence, and Jerome preferred it that way. He punched in the side door code. Fluorescents buzzed on one row at a time, washing the polished concrete in pale blue light. He set his bag in the maintenance closet, pulled on his gray work shirt, staff stitched above the pocket, and started his routine. Mop bucket first. 2 capfuls of the lavender cleaner Eleanor ordered special because the chemical stuff gave her migraines. Start at the far corner by the squat racks and work toward the front desk in long, even strokes. By the time anyone walked in, the floors would shine, and nobody would think about why. 3 years. Every morning. Same pattern, same silence. Jerome was 34. He stood 6 feet even, shoulders stretching the seams of his shirt, forearms corded with veins that didn't belong to a man who only pushed a mop. But nobody at Iron Temple looked twice at the janitor. He was furniture, as permanent and invisible as the rubber flooring beneath the squat rack. He re-racked plates left scattered from the night before. A pair of 45s abandoned on the leg press, a 25 near the cables. Jerome picked up a 45-pound plate with one hand, carried it like a dinner plate, slid it onto the rack without breaking stride. Then the next one, and the next. If anyone had watched, if anyone had ever bothered, they'd have noticed. The grip, the wrist angle, the way 45 pounds moved through the air like it owed him something. Nobody watched. Eleanor Voss arrived at 6:30 sharp, 61, silver-haired. She'd owned Iron Temple for 19 years, the only gym in this part of Houston with a proper Olympic platform. Half the coaches in the city respected her. The other half were afraid of her. "Morning, Jerome." "Morning, Ms. Voss." She glanced around. Every plate racked, every mirror spotless, lavender hanging in the air. "You spoil me," she said. Jerome almost smiled. Almost. Eleanor was the only person at Iron Temple who used his name. Not hey, not excuse me, not janitor. His name. 3 syllables. She'd done it since the day she hired him, and he never told her how much it mattered. Sometimes, on slow mornings, she'd pour him a cup of coffee from her own thermos, and they'd sit behind the front desk without talking. Just 2 people comfortable with quiet. By 7, the gym hummed with its usual crowd. Jerome moved through them like smoke, wiping benches seconds after they emptied, sweeping chalk dust off platforms, refilling paper towels before anyone noticed they were low. He passed the Olympic platform on his way to the supply closet. A barbell sat loaded, 225. His eyes stayed on it half a second too long. Then he kept walking. Brett Harlow pulled into Iron Temple's parking lot at 11:15 in a matte black G-Wagon with his logo wrapped across the hood. 2.1 million followers. 3 sponsorship deals pinned to his bio. A cameraman named Tuck, who hadn't missed a shoot in 2 years, and a lighting guy named Seth who carried a ring light like it was a medical instrument. They walked in like they owned the building. Eleanor Voss watched them from behind the front desk. She'd seen 100 Brett Harlows come through her doors. Big muscles, bigger egos, cameras always rolling. They used her gym as a backdrop and treated her staff like props. She never said anything. They paid premium memberships. That was the deal she'd made with herself, and she hated it every single month. Brett set up his phone on a tripod. All right, episode 43, Gym Challenge Series. Let's go. Jerome was 3 feet away, wiping down the bench press station. He'd been invisible for 4 hours. Brett loaded the bar to 315. He cranked out 3 reps. Clean enough, not great. His hips rose too early on the second rep, and the third was more back than legs, but the camera angle hit it. He racked the bar. Got it? Got it. That should have been the end of it. Film, post, cash the check, drive home. But Brett noticed Jerome. Not Jerome as a person, Jerome as content. A big black man in a gray work shirt, mop in hand, cleaning the platform 2 stations over. Perfect contrast. Perfect thumbnail. The kind of visual that makes people stop scrolling. Hold on, Brett told Tuck. Keep rolling. He walked over, didn't ask, didn't introduce himself, just stood 3 feet from Jerome and spoke loud enough for the mic to catch every syllable. Yo, Janitor! Jerome didn't look up. He wrung the mop and kept working. I'm talking to you, big man. Brett's voice shifted, louder, performance mode. You ever actually use any of this equipment, or you just here to wipe up after the people who do? Jerome looked up. I'm doing my job. Your job. Brett smiled. Not at Jerome, at the camera. See, that's what I love about this country. Everybody's got a job. Some people lift. Some people clean. He let the pause hang. Some people were just built for one and not the other. A trainer near the dumbbell rack glanced over, then looked away fast. A woman on the elliptical pulled out one earbud, listened for 3 seconds, then put it back in. A college kid by the water fountain watched with his mouth half open, but his feet didn't move an inch. Nobody said anything. Nobody ever does. Jerome went back to mopping, jaw tight, hands steady. Brett should have stopped. Any decent person would have. But Brett Harlow didn't build 2 million followers by being decent. He'd built them by finding the line and stepping over it, because the algorithm doesn't reward kindness. It rewards conflict. And right now, the algorithm was hungry. He stepped closer, close enough for Jerome to smell the pre-workout on his breath. You know what's funny? You're built like you could actually do something. Shoulders, arms, you got the frame. He tilted his head. But here you are. Mopping. Every single day. Your pops mop floors too? Grandpops? How far back does the mop go in your family? Jerome stopped. The mop handle creaked under his grip. Must be genetic, Brett said. Quiet now, almost thoughtful. Some people were born to be in front of the camera. And some people, he gestured at Jerome's shirt, were born to make sure the floor's clean when we get here. You done? Jerome said, low, flat. The kind of quiet that makes smart men back up. Brett heard it. Tuck heard it. The whole gym heard it. That low register right before a man either walks away or doesn't. Brett chose wrong. Did I say you could stand this close to me while I'm filming? I'm cleaning the platform you're standing on, Jerome said. Move or wait. Brett blinked. Tuck's camera dipped, then steadied. The gym had gone completely still. Treadmills hummed, but nobody was running. What did you just say to me? I said move. Or wait. Pick one. A janitor, in a gray shirt, telling Brett Harlow, 2.1 million followers, 3 supplement sponsors, verified on every platform that mattered, to move. Brett's neck went red. You got a mouth on you for someone who scrubs my sweat off the floor. He stepped into Jerome's space, chest to chest. Your mama raised you to talk like that? Oh, wait, she probably couldn't afford to raise you right. The air left the room. Jerome's eyes changed. Something behind them unlocked. Something old and heavy and patient that had been sitting in the dark for a very long time. Keep my mother out your mouth. Brett grinned. He had what he wanted. The reaction, the tension, the content. Lift this. He slapped the loaded bar. 315. The plates rattled against the collars. Lift this and I'll take your job. I'll mop these floors. I'll scrub the toilets. Right here on camera. He spread his arms and turned to the room. But he won't, because boys like you carry other people's weight. You don't lift your own. 31 people in that gym. Not one said a word. Eleanor Voss stood behind the front desk, both hands flat on the counter, knuckles white, watching. Jerome looked at the bar, then at Brett, then back at the bar. He set the mop against the wall, slow, deliberate, like a man putting down one life and picking up another. He stepped onto the platform. Jerome stood over the bar and didn't move. Brett folded his arms. Tuck zoomed in. The whole production waited for the punchline. The janitor trying and failing, the bar pinned to the ground, the humiliation that would make this the most shared episode of Gym Challenge in its history. Except Jerome wasn't shaking. He wasn't nervous. He was reading the bar. 315. Standard Olympic barbell, 20 kilos. Calibrated bumper plates. Rogue, competition grade. He knew all of this in 2 seconds because he'd loaded bars like this 10,000 times before. Jerome rolled his shoulders once, adjusted his feet, hip width, toes out 15 degrees. He reached down and set his grip. Hook grip. Thumbs wrapped under the fingers, not over. The grip every Olympic lifter learns on day one, and every casual lifter never learns at all. Brett didn't see it because Brett had never used a hook grip in his life. But Eleanor saw it. From behind the front desk, 40 feet away, Eleanor Voss watched Jerome's hands close around that bar and felt something crack open in her chest. She'd coached youth weightlifting for 6 years before opening the gym. She knew what trained hands looked like, and the man who'd been mopping her floors for 3 years had the most technically perfect setup she'd ever seen outside of a sanctioned competition. Jerome pulled. The first phase, floor to knees, was silent. No grunt, no jerk, no heave. The bar broke from the ground like it had been waiting for permission. Back flat, chest up. The speed was controlled, patient. The kind of patience that comes from years of real coaching, not from watching highlight reels on a phone. Brett's smirk flickered. The second phase, the explosion. Jerome's hips drove forward and the bar accelerated. In Olympic lifting, this is called the second pull, and it separates lifters from pretenders. Jerome's hips fired and the bar jumped. 315 pounds left the earth with the kind of speed that made Tuck take a full step backward and nearly trip over his own tripod. The third phase, the catch. Jerome dropped under 315 like he was sitting into a chair he'd sat in 1,000 times. His elbows locked, his feet split, left forward, right back. A textbook split jerk that would have scored white lights at any meet in the country. The bar sat directly over his spine, centered, balanced, motionless, not a tremor. He stood up, 315 pounds overhead, held, controlled, silent. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. He set it down. The plates kissed the platform with barely a sound. Jerome had been taught to lower the bar with respect. His coach used to say the bar remembers how you treat it. The gym was silent. Not quiet. Silent. The difference is that quiet can be broken easily. Silence is what happens when 31 people collectively forget how to breathe. Brett's arms had dropped to his sides. His mouth was open. Not for the camera, not for content. His brain had short-circuited. He'd loaded that bar to embarrass a janitor, and the janitor had walked through it like it wasn't there. Then the sound came. It started with the college kid by the water fountain. He clapped once, twice. Then a woman on the elliptical joined. Then the trainer who'd turned his back during Brett's insults. Clapping now, staring at the floor, ashamed of himself for looking away, but clapping hard to make up for it. Within 10 seconds, every person in Iron Temple was either clapping, shouting, or holding their phone up. 9 phones, 9 different angles. 9 videos that would each individually outperform everything Brett Harlow had ever posted in his entire career combined. Jerome stepped off the platform. He picked up his mop. He walked back to the bench press station he'd been cleaning, wrung the mop out, dipped it in the bucket, and went back to work. He didn't look at Brett. He didn't look at the camera. He didn't say a single word. That was the part that destroyed people. Not the lift. The lift was extraordinary. But picking the mop back up, going right back to work like 3:15 overhead was just a thing that happened between wiping down the bench and refilling the paper towels. That was the image that would haunt the internet for weeks. Brett stood on the platform alone, camera still rolling. His planned content was dead on arrival. What was alive was something much worse. A video of Brett Harlow being made completely, permanently irrelevant by a man earning $11.60 an hour. "Cut," Brett said. Tuck didn't move. "I said cut!" Tuck lowered the camera, but Seth's phone was still up, and the college kids, and a man near the exit who'd been filming from behind a pillar since the first insult. Brett grabbed his bag and walked out without a word. He didn't re-rack his plates. He never did. Jerome watched him leave. Then he walked to the platform, stripped the bar, one plate at a time, one hand, same dinner plate carry, and racked every single one. Eleanor came out from behind the front desk and stood at the edge of the platform. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. "How long?" she said. Jerome shook his head. "Jerome, how long have you been able to do that?" He squeezed the mop handle, looked at the floor, then at Eleanor, the only person in this building who'd ever said his name. "My whole life, Ms. Voss." She nodded slow, didn't push. She reached out and squeezed his shoulder, once, firm, the way a coach does when words aren't big enough, and walked back to the desk. By 1 o'clock, Jerome clocked out. He drove home to 3rd Ward, heated up leftover rice and beans for himself and his mother, and sat beside her while she watched her afternoon shows. She asked him how his day was. "Same as always," he said. It wasn't. And by tomorrow morning, 47 million people would know it. The first video hit the internet at 12:47 p.m. Danny Price, 19, exercise science major at UH, the college kid who'd been standing by the water fountain, posted it on TikTok with one caption. "Janitor just ended this man's whole career." By 6 p.m., it had 4 million views. By midnight, 9 different clips from 9 different angles had been uploaded across every platform. The hashtag #JanitorStrong trended in 4 countries within 12 hours. Fan accounts appeared before anyone even knew Jerome's name. A reaction video from a retired Olympic weightlifter named Pavel Koris went viral on its own. Pavel watched the clip frame by frame, then looked straight into the camera and said, "That is not a janitor who learned to lift. That is a lifter who became a janitor. And whoever trained him, that coach is watching this right now with tears in his eyes." Pavel was right about that last part, but we'll get there. News outlets scrambled. A fitness podcast dedicated an emergency episode to analyzing Jerome's technique second by second. The hook grip, the vertical bar path, the split jerk, the controlled descent. Conclusion: this man didn't learn that in a commercial gym. This is Division I form, possibly national level. And somewhere in 3rd Ward, Jerome Dawson woke up Tuesday morning to 219 missed calls on a phone that usually got 3. He didn't answer any of them. His mother, Lorraine, was the one who told him. She'd been watching the morning news from her recliner, the one with the heating pad Jerome had bought secondhand because her arthritis made cold mornings unbearable, and she saw her son's face on the screen. "Jerome," she said, "come here." He walked in with a bowl of oatmeal and stopped. Channel 13 was running the clip. The chyron read, "Houston janitor goes viral after stunning weightlifting display." "That's you," Lorraine said. "Yes, ma'am." "When were you going to tell me?" "It wasn't a big deal, Mama." Lorraine Dawson looked at her son the way only a mother can. The look that says, "I know exactly who you are. I know what you're hiding, and I've known since before you did." "Baby," she said, You lifted 300 pounds over your head on camera and then picked a mop back up. Don't tell me it's not a big deal." Jerome sat down next to her and watched himself on television. The man on screen looked like a stranger. The man on the couch felt like someone whose carefully built silence had just been blown apart. The fallout for Brett Harlow was fast, public, and surgical. By sunset on day 2, Grind Fuel, his primary supplement sponsor, released a 3-sentence statement dropping him. No negotiation, no phone call, 3 sentences and a dead contract. Vital Form followed 6 hours later with a single paragraph that used the words values and alignment without specifying either. His management company stopped returning his calls by Wednesday morning. Brett tried damage control. He posted a video at 2 a.m. Tuesday, sitting in his G-Wagon, hat pulled low. He said he'd been taken out of context. He said the janitor was in on it. Nobody bought it. 9 camera angles from 9 strangers made out of context a mathematical impossibility. His follower count, 2.1 million on Monday morning, dropped below 1.6 by Thursday. The algorithm that built Brett Harlow was now burying him. But the real story was never about Brett. He was the match. Jerome was the fire. A sports reporter from the Houston Chronicle named Maria Santos typed Jerome Dawson into the NCAA database and found what she needed in 30 seconds. Jerome Allen Dawson. University of Houston. Division I men's weightlifting, 2012 through 2016. 89-kilogram class. 2-time conference champion. National semifinal qualifier. Clean and jerk personal record, 171 kilograms, 377 pounds. That record still stood. Nobody at UH had touched it in 10 years. Maria published Wednesday morning. The article told the story Jerome never would have told himself. In 2016, his senior season, Jerome tore his rotator cuff. Full-thickness tear. Surgery. 9 months of rehab. 3 weeks after surgery, sling still on, his mother was diagnosed with lupus nephritis. Kidneys failing. No health insurance. No savings. Jerome withdrew mid-semester. Left the sport without telling his coach. Took a warehouse job in Pasadena, then a loading dock near the ship channel, then a hotel night shift where he cleaned rooms and scrubbed bathrooms. He never mentioned that his hands used to hold world-class weight over his head. 3 years ago, he saw a listing for a janitorial position at Iron Temple. He walked in, saw the Olympic platform in the back corner, and almost walked right back out. He took the job anyway. And every morning for 3 years, he walked past that platform and kept going. Until Brett Harlow decided he was content. The article cracked Jerome's life open. Reporters showed up at his mother's building. Good Morning America left a voicemail. He turned his phone off and went to work. Eleanor was behind the front desk Thursday morning at 5:30. She had 2 cups of coffee and the kind of look on her face that said she hadn't slept. "You saw the article," he said. "I saw it," she said. "So did the rest of the planet." "I'm sorry I didn't tell you." Eleanor shook her head. "You don't owe me your past, Jerome. You never did." She slid a Post-it note across the desk. "But someone called the gym line yesterday. I think you want this one." Eleanor's careful handwriting. "Ray Sterling, coach, USA weightlifting. Call me back. I recognized your technique before I recognized your face." Jerome stared at the note for a long time. He folded it once, twice, slid it into his pocket next to his car keys. He picked up the mop, filled the bucket, added 2 capfuls of lavender, and started his morning. Same corner, same strokes, same route to the front desk. But the Post-it in his pocket weighed more than anything he'd ever lifted. Jerome didn't call Ray Sterling on Thursday, or Friday, or Saturday. The Post-it sat on his nightstand, folded next to a glass of water and a bottle of his mother's medication. Every night he looked at it. Every morning he looked at it again. But Brett Harlow was not done. Friday night, Brett posted a video. Not from his G-Wagon, from a different gym. Shirtless, veins popping. 90 seconds that changed everything. "Everybody wants to call me the villain," he said. Fine, I'm the villain. But one lift doesn't make you a lifter. One clip doesn't make you a champion. So here's what I'm going to do. He looked dead into the lens. There's a USA weightlifting sanctioned event in Houston in 6 weeks. Gulf Coast Open. I'm registering. 89 kilos. Pause. And I'm calling out Jerome Dawson. Show up. Compete. Real platform. Real judges. We'll see if that one lift was a fluke, or if you're actually what the internet thinks you are. He leaned closer. Because I think you got lucky once and went back to mopping. Because that's all you've got. 22 million views in 48 hours. Not because people supported Brett, because they wanted to see him lose again. Jerome saw the video Sunday morning. Eleanor texted the link with one word. Look. He watched it twice, set the phone down, picked up the post-it. He called Ray Sterling. 3 rings. This is Sterling. Coach Sterling, Jerome Dawson. A pause. I've been waiting for this call for 10 years. They met Monday morning at a diner on Alameda Road. Sterling was 63. Gray beard, trimmed close. Team USA windbreaker through 3 Olympic cycles, 2 Olympic medals, 7 World Championship qualifiers. Black coffee, straight to the point. I watched the clip 11 times, Sterling said. Your feet, your grip, your catch, your descent. You know what I saw? A rusty lift from a man who hasn't trained in a decade. I saw a lifter who was undertrained, underloaded, and still technically cleaner than 90% of the athletes I coached at the international level. Sterling set his cup down. You didn't lose it, Jerome. You buried it. There's a difference. Jerome told him everything. The torn rotator cuff, his mother's lupus, the years of warehouses and loading docks, the gym job, the platform he walked past every morning. Sterling listened without interrupting. Then he asked one question. Brett Harlow just registered for your weight class at the Gulf Coast Open. Are you going to let that man write the last page of your story? I haven't competed in 10 years, coach. Your body remembers, muscle memory intact, technique intact. What we rebuild is your capacity, max load, strength endurance, and your confidence under judges. He paused. 6 weeks is tight. I've taken athletes from worse to the podium in less. My shoulder, Jerome said. The rotator cuff. It's never been right since the surgery. We work around it. Wider grip on the jerk, slightly different catch angle. Your body adapts in 2 weeks. I don't want to do this for the internet, Jerome said. And I don't want to do this for Brett Harlow. Then who? For me, he said. Sterling nodded. That's the only right answer. Let's get to work. They started that afternoon. Eleanor cleared the schedule. Jerome had the Olympic platform from 5 to 7 a.m. The first session was diagnostic. Sterling watched with a clipboard, said almost nothing, and wrote constantly. The second week, they added weight. Jerome's body remembered what his mind had tried to forget. The groove came back first. The bar path, the timing, the rhythm between pull and catch. Then the strength. His legs had never really weakened. 3 years of hauling mop buckets and carrying plates had kept the base intact. The shoulder was the variable. Some mornings it cooperated. Others it screamed during the jerk phase. Sterling widened the grip by 2 centimeters, changed the dip angle by 3 degrees, built a jerk technique that routed force around the damaged tissue instead of through it. By week 3, Jerome was cleaning 150. By week 4, 160. Each morning he arrived at 5, trained for 2 hours, showered, changed into his gray work shirt, and started mopping at 7:15 like nothing had happened. ESPN announced they'd live stream the event. The Houston Convention Center moved the competition to the main hall, sold out in 2 days, 12,000 seats. Brett trained too. He posted daily clips, heavier weights, angrier captions. Jerome didn't post anything. The only people who saw him train were Sterling and Eleanor only because she brought coffee to the platform every morning at 6 and set it on the jerk block without saying a word. The night before the competition, Jerome sat alone in Iron Temple after closing. The lights were off except for the ones above the platform. He stood there in the dark, feeling the rubber under his feet, breathing in the chalk dust and the lavender and the iron. 10 years since he'd stood on a competition platform and heard a judge say, "Bar is loaded." He closed his eyes, opened them. Tomorrow. The Houston Convention Center smelled like chalk and floor wax and 12,000 people who had paid to see a janitor lift. Jerome arrived at 7 a.m., gray sweatpants and a plain black t-shirt. No logo, no sponsor, no crew. Just a gym bag with his lifting shoes, his belt, his wrist wraps, and a roll of athletic tape older than most of the competitors in the warm-up room. Sterling was already there, clipboard in hand. "How's the shoulder?" Sterling asked. "It's there," Jerome said.
That's not what I asked.
"It'll hold." Brett Harlow arrived at 9:30 with a crew of 4 and a custom singlet with his logo on the chest. He looked like a brand. Jerome looked like a man who'd come to lift. They saw each other across the warm-up room. Brett held Jerome's gaze for 2 seconds, then looked away. For the first time since this started, Brett Harlow looked nervous.
The snatch portion went clean.
Jerome hit 120 kilograms on his first, 125 on his second, and missed 130 on his third. The shoulder twinged on the catch. Brett hit 120, 125, and made 128 on a grinder. After the snatch, Brett led Jerome by 3 kilograms in the total. It didn't matter. The clean and jerk was Jerome's event. It had always been his event, and everyone in the building knew it. The clean and jerk session began at 3 p.m. 12,000 seats full. Standing room along the walls. 512,000 watching the ESPN live stream. "This is the moment," the lead commentator said. "The 89-kilo clean and jerk. And the story everyone came for, Brett Harlow versus Jerome Dawson." Brett opened at 150, made it, pointed at the camera, scattered applause mixed with boos.
Jerome opened at 155.
He walked to the bar the way he walked to the mop bucket every morning. Quiet, unhurried. He set his feet, hook grip, pulled, caught, stood, jerked. 155 overhead. 3 white lights. The crowd erupted. Brett went to 160 on his second attempt. He made it, but barely. Legs buckling on the stand-up, the jerk off center. 2 white lights and 1 red. He was near his ceiling.
Jerome's second attempt.
165. Sterling had calculated this number carefully. Enough to overtake Brett's total, but not so heavy that Jerome would burn energy he'd need for the third attempt. Jerome heard Sterling's voice from the side of the platform. 1 word. The same word from every training session. "Yours."
Jerome pulled.
The clean was smooth. He stood out of the front squat with his chest high, paused, dipped, drove. The bar went overhead and locked. 165. 3 white lights. The crowd was on its feet. Brett's third attempt was 168. He needed it to stay in contention. He pulled. The clean was ugly. He caught it low, knees caving. He fought to stand, face going purple. He stood, barely. Dipped for the jerk, drove. The bar stalled at forehead height. His arms buckled. The bar came crashing down. He stumbled backward and sat on the platform. 3 red lights. No lift. Brett Harlow was done. Jerome had 1 attempt left. He'd already won. His total was ahead by 11 kilograms. He could have stopped, taken the gold, gone home. Sterling walked to the scoring table and submitted Jerome's third attempt. 181. The head judge looked at the card, looked at Sterling, looked back at the card. 181 kilograms, 399 pounds. The current world record in the 89-kilogram clean and jerk was 180 kilograms, set 6 years ago at the World Championships. Jerome Dawson, a janitor from 3rd Ward, Houston, was attempting to break the world record.
The arena went quiet.
Not polite quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when 12,000 people realize they might be witnessing something that's never been done before. The commentator's voice dropped to a whisper. 181. That would be a new world record. Jerome stood behind the bar. He chalked his hands slow, wrapped his thumbs, set his feet. Hip width, toes out 15 degrees. The same setup he'd used since he was 19 years old. He closed his eyes. He thought about his mother in the recliner, the heating pad, the dialysis bills stacked in a shoebox under the kitchen sink. He thought about the warehouse in Pasadena, the loading dock, the hotel bathrooms at 3 a.m. He thought about the platform at Iron Temple that he walked past every morning for 3 years. He thought about Brett Harlow saying, "Your mama probably couldn't afford to raise you right." He opened his eyes. He pulled. The bar broke from the floor, clean, vertical. The second pull detonated. Jerome's hips snapped forward with a force that made the nearest judge flinch. 399 pounds left the earth. Jerome dropped under it. The catch was deep, below parallel, elbows high. His right shoulder screamed. The old tear, the scar tissue, the nerve that had never fully healed. It screamed and he heard it, and he stood up anyway. He stood. Slowly. Deliberately. 399 pounds on his shoulders, and he rose like the weight was asking permission, not giving orders. The arena held its breath. 12,000 people. 500,000 watching online. Nobody moved. Jerome set his feet for the jerk. Dipped. The dip Sterling had rebuilt from scratch. Wider grip, angled catch, force routed around the shoulder, not through it. He drove. The bar went up, over his head. His arms locked, his feet split, left forward, right back. The bar sat overhead, centered, balanced, still. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The head judge's hand went up. Down signal. Jerome lowered the bar to his shoulders, then to the platform. Controlled, respectful. The bar remembers how you treat it. He looked at the judges. 3 white lights. Good lift. World record. The sound that came from that arena was not applause. It was something closer to an explosion. 12,000 people releasing everything they'd been holding since the moment Jerome chalked his hands. The floor shook. The broadcast cameras shook. The commentator tried to speak and couldn't. Jerome stood on the platform. He didn't flex. He didn't scream. He didn't point at the camera or pound his chest. He dropped to one knee, pressed his forehead against the platform, and stayed there. Sterling was the first to reach him. The old coach knelt beside his lifter, put one hand on the back of Jerome's head, and said nothing. There was nothing to say. Eleanor Voss was in the 12th row. She had both hands over her mouth. Her cheeks were wet. The woman next to her, a stranger, grabbed her arm and squeezed it, and Eleanor squeezed back, because in that moment everyone in that building was connected by the same feeling. The color analyst, the former Olympian, wiped his eyes on camera and said, "I've been in this sport for 30 years. That's the most beautiful lift I've ever seen." On the far side of the platform, Brett Harlow sat in his chair. He looked at the screen showing Jerome's face. He looked for a long time. Then he did something no one expected. He stood up, walked to the platform, and extended his hand. Jerome looked up from his knee, saw the hand, saw Brett's face. No smirk, no performance, no angle. Just a man who'd lost so completely that the only thing left was the truth. Jerome took his hand. The arena roared again. Not as loud this time, warmer. The kind of sound people make when they see something they didn't think humans were still capable of. The world record was confirmed at 4:47 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon in Houston, Texas. 181 kilograms, 399 pounds. The new record belonged to a man who made $11.60 an hour. By Sunday morning, the world record clip had been viewed 63 million times. Hashtag Janitor World Record trended in 41 countries. Danny Price, the college kid who'd started it all, posted the record lift with a new caption. "I told you! I told all of you!" USA Weightlifting released a statement confirming Jerome Dawson's eligibility for the national team. The Olympic trials were 11 months away. Jerome's name was on the preliminary roster before anyone thought to ask if he wanted it there. He did, but he needed a day before he could say it. The weeks that followed moved like a river breaking through a dam. Jerome drove home from the convention center that Saturday night with Sterling in the passenger seat, and Eleanor following in her car behind them. His mother had watched the live stream from her recliner. Lorraine had figured out how to cast her phone to the television, something she'd never done before and would never do again for anything less than her son breaking a world record. When Jerome walked through the door, Lorraine was standing. Not sitting in the recliner, standing. The heating pad was on the couch. The recliner was empty. She'd gotten up for him. "Come here," she said. He came. And for the first time since he was 12 years old, Jerome Dawson cried in his mother's arms. Not because of the record, not because of the crowd or the cameras or the 3 white lights, because she was standing, because she was still here, because all of it, the warehouses, the loading docks, the hotel bathrooms, the 3 years of mopping floors, all of it had been for her, and she was standing in front of him, alive, with her arms open. A GoFundMe that Eleanor set up without asking raised $412,000 in 9 days. Jerome used $90,000 to pay off his mother's medical debt. Every invoice, every collection notice, every bill from the shoebox under the kitchen sink. The rest went into a trust for her ongoing care. For the first time in a decade, Lorraine Dawson's medical future was funded, and her son didn't have to choose between her health and his own life. Nike reached out. Under Armour called. Jerome took one meeting with one brand, Rogue Fitness, the company that made the plates he'd been racking for 3 years. They offered a sponsorship that included funding for Sterling's coaching program, equipment for a youth weightlifting initiative in 3rd Ward, and a salary that exceeded everything Jerome had earned in the previous 5 years combined. He signed the contract at Eleanor's desk on a Tuesday morning, before his shift. "You don't have to keep working here, you know," Eleanor said. "I know," Jerome said. He picked up his mop and started his morning. He didn't keep the position forever. By the 3rd month, Sterling's training schedule made full shifts impossible. But Jerome negotiated something with Eleanor. He'd come in 3 mornings a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, at 5:30, and clean the gym before it opened. No pay, no obligation. Just a man and a mop and the silence he'd come to need. Eleanor agreed on one condition. She walked him to the wall beside the front entrance. A framed photograph hung there now. Jerome, mid-lift, 181 overhead, the instant the judges gave 3 white lights. Below it, a brass plate engraved with 5 words. He never forgot who he was. Jerome looked at it for a long time, then at Eleanor. "Ms. Voss." "Jerome, thank you for saying my name." She squeezed his arm. They didn't need anything else. Brett Harlow's story didn't end the way the internet wanted. 3 months after the competition, Brett posted a video. No ring light, no crew, no G-Wagon, plain t-shirt, hair uncombed. 11 minutes of the most honest content he'd ever made. He talked about growing up in a house where his father measured a man's worth by the size of his bench press, about building an identity around a body and a follower count, and discovering, on a platform in front of 12,000 people, that neither meant what he thought. He called Jerome by his name, not the janitor, his name. "I said things I can't take back," Brett said, "and I'm not going to pretend a video fixes that. It doesn't. But I watched a man break a world record, and then I watched him go back to mopping on Monday morning. And I realized I'd never met anyone that strong. Not in the weight room. In here." He tapped his chest. 9 million views. The comments were split. Some forgave him. Some didn't. Jerome never commented publicly, but the week after it went live, Brett's phone rang. "Hello? It's Jerome." Yeah. Hi. I watched your video. It took guts. Don't waste it." He hung up. No grand reconciliation, no joint podcast, no redemption arc for thumbnails. Just one sentence from a man who never wasted words. Sterling reopened his coaching program full-time. He took on 6 young athletes, 3 from 3rd Ward, 2 from Pasadena, 1 from 5th Ward. Kids who couldn't afford club dues or travel fees. The Rogue sponsorship covered everything. They trained on the platform at Iron Temple in the early mornings. Eleanor didn't charge a cent.
The youngest, a 16-year-old named Elijah Brooks, had been cleaning tables at a barbecue joint when Sterling found him. 3 months into training, he snatched 90 kilograms with form that made Sterling's hand shake writing the number. When a reporter asked Elijah why he'd started lifting, the kid said, "Because Jerome showed me the platform doesn't care what job you work." Jerome trained alongside them, not as their coach, as their proof. Proof that the platform doesn't ask for your resume, doesn't care about your zip code or your tax bracket, or what people call you when they think you can't hear. The platform cares about one thing only: what you can do when it's just you and the bar and the weight of everything you've carried to get here. The Olympic trials were 11 months away. Jerome was on the roster. Sterling was coaching. The shoulder was holding. The numbers were climbing. And 3 mornings a week at 5:30 a.m., Jerome Dawson walked into Iron Temple Gym, filled a mop bucket, added 2 capfuls of lavender cleaner, and started at the far corner by the squat racks. Same pattern, same strokes, same route to the front desk. But now, when he passed the Olympic platform, he didn't keep walking. So here's my question for you, and I want a real answer. Who's the Jerome Dawson in your life? Who's the person you walk past every single day without looking twice? Drop it in the comments. I want to know. If this story hit you the way it hit me, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you already know what to do.
Word record, rewind lies, and the next morning, Monday, Jerome picked the mob back up. Same gym, same corner, same man. Jerome didn't step on that platform to prove anyone wrong. He stepped on it because for 10 years he'd been walking past who he really was, and that's the quiet tragedy most people never talk about. It's not failure that buries us. It's the moment we convince ourselves that survival is enough, that keeping the lights on means letting the fire go out. But here's what Jerome proved. What's real in you doesn't expire. You can walk past it for 1,000 mornings. It will still be there on morning 1001, waiting for you to stop walking. So let me ask you something. What if the heaviest thing you're carrying isn't the weight on your shoulders, but the version of yourself you left behind? And if you saw that person again tomorrow, standing on the other side of the room, would you even recognize them? Drop it in the comments, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you already know what to do.